Hey everyone, it's Brandon Lee, host of the podcast Escaping Rock Bottom. I love the guest you're about to meet today. Her name is Kimberly. She is a registered nurse over at Soul Surgery Recovery right here in the Valley. They happen to be partners of mine here at Art of Our Soul. It's an incredible treatment program, and I know that because I get to see their clients every week here at Art of Our Soul. They're happy, they're enjoying life, and I can tell that they're doing real healing work at Soul Surgery. Kimberly, thanks for being on here. In addition to being a registered nurse at Soul Surgery, you're also the owner of Soul Recovery. What is Soul Recovery?
So Soul Recovery is showing others unconditional love in recovery. And it's all about, I'm a sober life coach. Some of my clients aren't even addicts or alcoholics. They're just need life coaching. And then I do interventions. I do sober escorting, just anything you need in that aspect. I can help the families get into recovery or get their loved ones into recovery. So that's what I do.
I love that. Well, listen, I got to meet you because Soul Surgery ended up joining Art of Our Soul.
Yes.
I had actually toured their facility. And let me just tell you, and I tell people this all the time, like I tour a lot of facilities. And I say to people all the time, why wasn't this open when I was getting sober? Like 13 years ago, I want to go rock climbing. They have the most insane rock climbing wall. When I was touring it, I looked around and I'm like, if and when I ever do relapse, like I need to come here to Soul Surgery. Because that rock climbing wall is amazing. But also like, I felt the warmth of the staff. Like Dr. Ravi, are you kidding me? Like he's amazing. Like Dr. Ravi's amazing. And I had such a great time being able to chat with him and just seeing the passion that he has for the people. And like, I can tell you that I know that it's a great treatment center because I can tell by the attitudes and the energy of the folks that come here to Art of Our Soul for their art healing sessions. Yeah. And like, you know who they make their artwork for, Kimberly?
They're therapists.
They're therapists. Like I you all come every Thursday afternoon at 3:00 and they come in and I'm like, and they're like, Brandon, like I want this color scheme. Can you help me with this? And I was like, yeah, that's cool. Who are you making this artwork for? And they're like, I'm making it for my therapist, or I'm making it for my navigator, or just
the case manager.
Their case manager. And they're like, I'm making this for my case manager. And you know what that tells me? I'm like, that shows love and compassion and empathy that's happening over there from the staff to the client. And they feel that.
Yes. And you know, what's incredible is that I would say 80% of our staff is in recovery, myself included. But the ones that aren't, I don't know where their empathy and their compassion for those perceivingly unlovable, because that's what they are when they walk through the door. They don't love themselves, right? And they're the perceivingly unlovable. But the amount of love and compassion that comes from people like Dr. Ravi, who is not in recovery, Maura, the nurse over at Detox. I mean, there's a bunch of people that aren't in recovery that you would be like, how?
What are you tapping into in order to continue to pour into these broken souls?
Exactly. And I think that, you know, when you think about addiction as a whole, there's no family it hasn't touched. No, there isn't.
It lives everywhere.
Yeah.
Because it's trauma.
Exactly.
Right? And if we come from the understanding that childhood trauma and unhealed trauma is the gateway to addiction.
Oh, well, we're trying to feel something other than what we're feeling, right?
Correct.
We're trying to, you know, and that's what you do. You numb. You numb. You're trying to selectively numb.
Well, we're going to get into all that. But first, I want people to get to know you, Kimberly, first off. The moment you walked into my art studio, I was like, this is my girl. I was like, I like this girl. She's super cool. You're my people. Where were you born and raised?
Buffalo, New York.
Buffalo, New York.
Yes.
You do not look like a Buffalo, New Yorker.
I know.
I feel like, as I grew up in Laguna Beach, California, I'm a SoCal kid. You look like you belong in SoCal. Like you got SoCal vibes. What was it like living in Buffalo, New York?
I was born and raised there. It was great. Even
the winters?
Oh yeah, that was awful.
Brutal.
Was so terrible.
I lived in New York City and I lived in Boston, Mass, and Hartford, Connecticut.
I know.
Like winters.
No. No, that's how I feel now. I've seen enough snow to last me a lifetime. I never need to see it again. I don't ski even.
You live in the desert. Like, you could not live in two polar opposite places than living in Phoenix, Arizona or Scottsdale, Arizona, and then growing up in Buffalo. Like, those are two polar opposites of places to live.
And people say all the time, "Oh, did you love the snow and making snowmen?" And I'm like, no, I remember scraping my car and shoveling in the morning, and then the snow plows coming by and shoveling again. No, thank you.
Okay, well, take me back to your childhood. What did that look like for you?
And we talk about that trauma, right? And that drama and your baby mama or whatever. I make it rhyme. But so I was born and raised in Buffalo by my mom. My dad and my mom divorced when I was 2. And my dad was not really involved in my life for that time, and for a myriad of reasons that I found out a lot more in my adulthood. I thought I had daddy issues. It turns out I more have mommy issues.
Oh my God. Okay. Well, we all have mommy daddy issues.
Yeah. So that's that. So anyway, but it was nice. We lived in, a suburb of Buffalo, Cheektowaga, and I was born and raised there, and just, it seemed all normal and fine. I didn't really know what was lacking until later on.
Okay, well, when did you start drinking? When did you start numbing out? Like, at what age were you then?
40.
40.
Mm-hmm. I drank like a normal person till I was 40. I would have a drink at Christmas time or something like that. And I was in an epically unhappy marriage, married 20 years, and I was failing at happiness. I was failing at life. Everything looked fantastic from the outside.
Right.
Okay. I had that 2 cars in the garage and a roof over the head, 3 kids and
well, that's what we do.
Husband. Yeah.
Perception is everything. If my outsides look pretty, then my life is great, which we know is bullshit.
And I kept saying, yeah, exactly. And I was like, why am I so unhappy?
Oh.
And my ex-husband drank a lot, and I'll just leave that alone. Yeah. But I thought, okay, well, maybe I can just drink with them and fix this, right?
Oh,
and so when I started drinking, I found out very quickly I wasn't a good drinker. But because I was drinking to feel nothing,
right,
to check out. And so I was, I don't know if I can say this, but I was like balls to the wall. I was not playing around. Like I was drinking to check out. And so I started drinking, and in a year and a half, I think I did more damage than most people in like 15 years of alcoholism.
Yeah, that's what happens. Especially, and I will say this too, Kimberly, especially prolonged, right? If that trauma happened and, that if it is mommy or daddy issues or mommy issues, well, that's early childhood development, right? So that's in those formative years, 0 to 3 or 0 to 10, right? And so when early childhood trauma hits, it actually changes the way the brain is formed, right?
Yeah.
And so it already messes up with the wiring of our brains. So what people don't understand is that in their 30s or 40s, if they begin to misfire, they can't oftentimes make the connection that the reason why they're misfiring is because of trauma that happened in early childhood, because it happened so long ago. But it doesn't matter. If we don't heal from that childhood trauma, it will eventually, at some point in our lives, catch up to us.
Yeah, I heard it as like, if you don't show up for what's up will keep showing up in your life.
Right.
And that's how it was for me. Like, everything was just this trial by fire and this catastrophe after, and it was just a nightmare, and then I'm trying to hide behind this, persona of like, everything's good. I got it all together. I'm a successful nurse. I'm this, I'm that. I have a husband. I have 3 kids.
Well, it's perception, right?
Exactly.
We just want the world to see us as perfectly put together.
And I didn't want to fail. I didn't want everyone to know I had failed. And so when it really started swirling the toilet, I got a super extreme DUI. I had to report myself to the board of nursing. And then I'm like, my life's over, right? Like, and I didn't know, like you said in the beginning, I didn't know about treatment centers like Soul Surgery.
Right.
I had no idea. And I sure didn't know my insurance would pay for them.
I didn't know either.
And as a nurse of 20 years, I didn't understand this disease. And so, I get the super extreme DUI. I go home, and what's my answer to that? Drink more, right? Like, my life's over, right?
Right.
I'm going to have to report myself. What am I going to do? And so at that point, it was no longer working. My ex-husband took away all the liquor, and I found a bottle. I drank the rest of that, And I remember going into the bathroom, and I remember standing there. And as a nurse, I'm standing there. I pick up a bottle of rubbing alcohol, and I'm wasted. I am so drunk, and I'm staring at this bottle of rubbing alcohol, and I'm saying to myself, how much of this can I drink and still live? Because I didn't want to die.
Right.
I just didn't know how to live. And I turned the bottle up. And I don't know how it got past my nose, but it did. And that's the last thing I remember there. I ended up in the hospital. In the hospital, my IV got infected. I have a 7.5-inch scar on my arm. 2 surgery. I went completely septic. A fever of 103.5. 2 surgeries later, and my arm was huge. They finally got the infection under control with an infectious disease specialist, and I'm starting to wake up from this whatever. Fog of everything, right? Fog of the sepsis, fog of the drinking, fog of everything. And I remember the doctor walks into my room, and she starts to tell me my lab values. And as a nurse, I'm looking at her, and I'm like, I'm in renal failure? My kidneys are shutting down? And she looks at me and she says, you drank poison. You tried to kill yourself. Of course you're in renal failure. And I looked at her and I panicked. All I could think of is, she doesn't understand this disease. I don't understand this disease. And if I don't find someone who does, I'm going to die. And it was in that moment, I'm laying there, broken, lost, completely defeated. I could have not, there was no way I was going to be able to stand up for myself in that moment. And all of a sudden these words come out of my mouth, and I can only call it divine. And I said, you are not the doctor for me. Get out of my room. And I stood back and I went, where did that come from? Like, I don't, it wasn't me. It wasn't me speaking. I can promise you that, because I was way too broken to speak for myself. And she flips her hair and she walks out of the room, and she's like, fine, I don't think I'm the doctor for you either. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? I just fired the doctor, right? But at this point as a nurse, I know that me firing her means the hospital has to find another doctor for me.
Right.
And so I prayed. I just sat there and I said, God, higher power, Allah, Buddha, whoever you are, right. Mother Earth, the universe, send someone who understands this disease. And a short time later, I was at Honor Health Shea, and actually it was Scottsdale Shea at the time. And a man walks in with a turban. His name's Dr. Pham. And he walks in and he says, he looks at me, he looks at my arm. My arm's wrapped. It's huge at this point. Like it is enormous. I almost had to take it off. And he says, how's your arm? And I looked down and I said, I still have one. And he just looked at me and he goes, you're going to be okay. And then he leaves and he comes back. Or he leaves and this case manager comes in, and she is just bubbly. Her name's Laura. She goes, hi, I'm Laura. I'm a case manager. And she says, I have 14 years in recovery, and you can too.
Oh, I just got goosebumps.
Mm-hmm. And she handed me the little blue book of Alcoholics Anonymous, and she printed off all these meetings in the area and by my home. And she said, she goes, you're going to be okay. She goes, get to a meeting. And it was beautiful because, I know how I got sober. I got sober in the rooms in a 12-step program. But that's not how I stay sober today.
No, it's not. But before you get into that, because I can relate.
I know you can.
Because there's that one part of the story of my story where I ended up on that life support after an overdose. And the chief neurosurgeon looked at me and he goes, you're going to bleed out. We have to go in and do brain surgery. And I said, no, you're not. And I unhooked myself from life support And I signed myself out AMA. And I walked out of Hollywood Presbyterian, down Hollywood Boulevard, found my truck, got inside of it, looked at my wrist, and I saw my name on the wristband from the hospital. And like a zombie, in the definition of hopelessness, I opened up my center console, I got out my meth pipe, and I hotboxed my truck. It's the last thing I remember. I ended up in the same ER, the same team of doctors around me who had saved my life twice in 2 weeks. No. This nurse came up to my bedside. And for the first time, Kimberly felt like I was shown empathy and compassion.
How are you going to make me cry?
She held my hand and she looked at me. She said, Brandon, do you believe in God? And I looked at her and I said, no, I don't. She goes, that's okay. My God still believes in you. I've saved your life twice in 2 weeks. Do me this favor. I'm going to give you $10 in cash out of my own purse. And when they discharge you, I want you to get a cab. And I want you to go to my church on Melrose and Mansfield. They have an AA meeting there every Thursday. Make me the promise you'll go. And I did. And had been sober ever since that day. All right. When I celebrated 10 years, I went back to the same hospital. And I went to the ER. And security tried to stop me. And they said, why are you here? Who are you? And I showed him the medallion that I had gotten. And I said, I have to give this to the person who saved my soul. And he looked at me and he goes, I'll escort you back. So we go back there and there she was. The chief surgeon whistled and got everyone to stop. And I was able to look at them and said, thank you for not giving up on me. Because you could have, after I unhooked myself from life support, walked out of your care and got high in the streets again. You could have told me to die. Yeah. You could have said, let him die. But you didn't. And I want to let you know that I'm trying to be the best man I can be. And I'm trying to do good with the life you've given me back.
Yeah.
And the chief surgeon walked me out to my car and he goes, thank you for coming back. Because people don't come back. You know, and so that just reminded me of that bubbly girl who walked in and the doctor who walked in and said, you're going to be just fine. You can have this too.
Yeah.
Because all it took was a little bit of compassion from a frontline worker.
Yeah, exactly. And
to not demonize us.
Exactly. And so after, getting well, getting sober, I'm like, this is my purpose-driven life. I am going to bring some level of understanding to this disease as a medical professional. I am going to bring love, empathy, and unconditional love to it because it needs it. And I'm going to, when you see someone like you or I right now in front of you put together, like our lives are restored, right? Because that's what we are. We're restored, right? We're healed. We're recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body, right? And so when you see that and then you hear the story behind it and you say, okay, well, maybe they have something to offer here. And that's really my goal, is to bring some level of understanding to the frontliners that don't understand, because I know I was a nurse for 20 years before this disease came to rape my soul.
Right.
And I didn't understand it because I only drank for a year and a half. But when it came for me, it came to rape my soul and take my life if I was going to let it. And I didn't understand it. I would be that nurse in ICU and who had someone socially intubated so that we could get them through the delirium tremens, who would have, who would be treating these people who were detoxing off of drugs and alcohol. And I would see him again in a month and I'd be like, oh, we got you through the hard part. Like, I didn't understand it. I didn't understand that wasn't the hard part. No. Living life on life's terms was the hard part.
Right.
And so, and like I said, it's really hard to love these people when they walk in and the kind of mindset is you did this to yourself. Well, like I didn't wake up in the morning and choose to be an alcoholic.
No, come on, man. Come on. It's all trauma.
Yeah.
And that's why we have to speak up about it. We have to, because I tell people all the time, what happened to you was not okay.
No.
You know, what happened to you as a child is not okay. You know, me being molested for 3 years is not okay.
Oh, I couldn't believe it when I read that. I mean, like your piano teacher, like
piano teacher. Yeah. Every Friday after school. You know, what happened to me is not okay. But you know what, Kimberly? As an adult, I had to make a decision to heal from that trauma.
Exactly.
So that what happened to me as a child does not own me for the rest of my life. It had owned me for far too long, until the age of 28. That trauma almost ended my life because all I wanted to do was numb.
Yeah.
But I was given a second chance, and I was able to heal from that trauma. So now that I get to live my life on my terms without that childhood trauma impacting and triggering me to this day. And that's what I tell people. You know, 99% of the people who walk into my art studio have experienced relapse.
Yeah.
Many of them have experienced multiple relapses. And I tell them all, if you want to stop relapsing, heal from the trauma.
Yeah.
Heal from the cuts that have made you bleed, and you will not bleed on others who have hurt you.
Yeah.
You have to do that.
Yeah.
At some point, we have to take ownership of our lives, not of what happened to us, of our lives. And in order to do that, we have to go back and heal from that trauma.
Yeah. And it's great that you say that too, because there's a big difference between fault and responsibility.
Correct.
And I explain this to our clients all the time. You know, it wasn't your fault. It wasn't.
It wasn't.
It wasn't your fault. None of that was your fault. But it is damn sure your responsibility, your heart, your happiness,
yes,
your love, your inner like confidence is your responsibility.
It is.
And no one else's. Yeah.
You know, my shaman tells me all the time, I practice shamanism, deep breath work, similar to EMDR. It gets me past the frontal lobe to the lower part of my brain where we store all those traumatic memories. And my shaman tells me, Brandon, those who have suffered early childhood trauma are given an opportunity to heal from it, to grow from it, and oftentimes become the world's best healers. Because while hurt people, the opposite must be true. That healed people heal people.
Yep. So go get healed.
And then you can help others heal. Yes. And people need to stop viewing trauma. What happens is trauma happens, and then they just get caught up in victim mode, right? And they get caught up in this hamster wheel of like victimization, and then they keep they keep playing that role. But we have to see that trauma gives us an opportunity. It gives us an opportunity to heal so that our souls can grow.
Absolutely.
And if we begin to look at that in a different viewpoint, in a different lens, then we won't play victim the rest of our lives.
Right. I say this all the time. I wish I had never read any fairy tales, because there is no Prince Charming. There is no fairy godmother. There is no knight in shining armor. No one is coming. Stop playing the victim. Stop being the damsel in distress. Stop being the victim, because no one's coming. You have to rescue yourself and find those people who have rescued themselves and do what they do.
Right.
You know?
And that's why, and I'm telling you, I mean, that's why I left my career of 22 years. I mean, I was a news anchor for 22 years, and then, but it was that trauma that I went through in 2020 where I experienced my first relapse 12 years sober. And it was that trauma of my first relapse because of trauma. And I never healed in those 12 years. All I did was go to meetings. And I'm here to tell you, if you think just going to meetings is going to heal you, you are fooling yourself. 12-step meetings are a piece of the pie. They are not the whole pie. Yeah. I will preach that to the end of my time.
I'm right behind you.
It is a piece of the pie, okay? And so I thought it was the whole pie. Meeting makers make it. That's what I was told.
Right.
Well, guess what? I went to a lot of meetings and suddenly I didn't make it one day because trauma happened. I went into fight or flight and I numbed out for 7 hours, right? That led to suicidal ideation with me not wanting to live anymore. It's also when I began doing inner child work and understanding that, no, you need to heal from the childhood trauma. And I did. It gave birth to me having dreams and using art as a way for me to heal from my trauma. So my shaman had me going to the art store to create artwork. I'm self-taught. I've never done artwork in my life until April of 2021. I've never taken an art class, but I did it as a way for myself to heal because I felt guided by spirit, and then had an epiphany last summer that I needed to leave news, open up an art healing studio for trauma survivors like me to give them the gift of art and the way art has helped me heal from my trauma. And so this is my life's purpose. Yeah. I left a career in news to open up an art healing studio. And I know some people out there, they're like, oh, come on, art, da, da, da. No, it effing works.
Yes.
And it works in a loving environment, which is why I left a newsroom environment. All newsrooms across this country are toxic. Like, it's just a lot of negativity, right? Negative murders, childhood rapes, all moms killing their babies. Like, how is that a positive environment? It's not. So when I left, my shaman goes, you have an opportunity. You can either recreate a toxic environment that you're so used to over 22 years of being a journalist, or you have the option to create the total opposite, which is why I created the vibe of Art of Our Soul that I did. So that every time I see those addicts getting off that shuttle, that they are excited to walk into my art studio.
And they are.
To create those new neural pathways, to experience joy. Because what I tell clinical directors and what I tell owners of treatment centers, if your clients are not given the opportunity to experience joy while they're doing EMDR, while they're doing the heavy lifting of trauma work, because let me tell you, doing the real trauma work is gut-wrenching. It's heavy. And if we don't give them an opportunity to heal in a positive way, to create new neural pathways, how do we expect them to stay sober when they leave your treatment facility if they have never experienced joy?
Exactly.
We have to. And that's why I'm grateful for Soul Surgery, for seeing that and believing in that. And not only that, investing in that.
Yes.
Right? Investing in your people and investing in their healing. Because there's a lot of treatment centers out there who just don't.
Yes.
Just do group. We need another hour for level of care. Let's just run a peer group. Like, it's not healing. Right?
Yes.
It's
and
not
healing. That's one thing I really appreciate about Soul Surgery is that they do that. They're like, what are we doing? Absolutely, yes, we're doing it. What does it cost? Okay, yeah, we're doing it.
We're doing it.
It doesn't matter. Yeah.
Because here's the other thing. Like, people don't even understand. Like, you said it at the very beginning. Addiction touches every family.
Everyone.
Okay, everyone. There is not one family that is excluded from it. So when somebody goes to treatment, right, and you're healing them, mind, body, and soul, they go back into their community and they're living a great life. Well, your next door neighbor's going through addiction problems, and so is their families, and they're seeing you now thriving. What are they going to do?
They come to you.
They're going to ask you, where did you go get sober?
Right.
Like, don't you as a treatment center want that to be your story? Or do you just want to be like, listen, man, we really care. Ship them in, ship them out, ship them in, ship them out. I'm like, no.
Yeah.
Like,
and that's another thing I love, that they have really it's Soul Surgery, and this is why I try to, if I have a client that needs to go into treatment,
right, because of your coaching and your
exactly
doing interventions.
I want them at Soul Surgery. So because I have a pulse, I have a finger on the pulse.
You know the vibe, you know what's happening.
Exactly. And then I know what they're getting while they're there. I know the therapies they're getting. I know the alumni support in our alumni group they get when they leave. I know the reach back, they reach out I guess we call it outreach, the outreach program where they're touching base with these people who don't come to our alumni, and they are, and they're making sure they're okay. And, if they do relapse, they're bringing them right back in. Okay. Where did we fall here?
And here's the other thing. And why I tell people relapse is not always a bad thing.
No,
no, it's not. It's an opportunity for us to go, I need to focus on something else.
Something didn't heal.
Something didn't heal. It doesn't mean, and this is the reason why, Kimberly, I don't count time. Okay?
Okay.
For this purpose. I don't count time in recovery for this purpose because I don't believe that you start over from 24 hours.
No.
I don't believe you start over from day one.
You didn't forget everything.
You didn't forget everything. You don't lose that experience, strength, and hope. So if you honestly had 8 months sober and you relapse and Soul Surgery reaches out to you and they're like, okay, well, come back in.
Right.
You don't lose all that time. Stop focusing on the time. You're putting too much ego into those chips.
Yes.
It's all based in ego. And so what I tell people, I'm like, no, just go, okay, well, let's do some deep trauma healing work to figure out where did we go? What did I miss? And what do I need to continue to grow on?
Yeah.
Right. And maybe it was another traumatic life experience that was so stored back here that you didn't think about. Right.
Yeah.
It's a journey. Life is a journey.
And I know when they walk through the doors too, it's like they walk through, I'm so sorry. They're apologizing for relapsing. And you're just like, baby, there is no shame in this game.
Yes.
No shame in this game.
So let me tell you,
this is hard.
I see it all the time in my art studio because I'm like, hey, I know you. Welcome back. And this is their reaction.
Yeah.
I messed up.
No.
And I go, no. Chin up. Look at me. Look at me. I've relapsed too. Look how amazing my life is. Who gives a shit?
Right.
Ready? What are we going to do differently? That's all we ask.
Yep.
What am I going to do a little bit different this time around? There is zero shame in relapse.
No,
Zero.
It does not matter how many times you fall. It's how many times you get back up.
You're damn right. Because I judge a character, I judge a person by the life they live and the healing work they've done. I do not automatically respect someone just because they have a 30-year chip. Is that understood? Just because you have a 30-year medallion, that does not earn my respect right away.
Yeah.
Because guess what? I can ask that person with 30 years, how many wives have you had?
Yeah.
How many times have you 13th step? Right?
Yeah.
Recovery is more than just not picking up a drink or a drug.
Right.
Recovery
and I
is
don't
much
know.
more than
Yeah,
that.
I don't know if you met Steve when you came out to Soul Surgery, but
In
Steve.
passing, is he bigger? Is he bigger?
Yeah,
He's got,
he's a
Steve,
spinner
you
now.
got
He's
all
lost some
those
weight.
muscles, Steve.
Yeah,
you got all
exactly.
those muscles. I met him
Yeah.
in passing when I was there.
He says the most profound things sometimes, and it almost irritates me. But because he says some things that like he's kind of calling you out, but like it's. But,
Yeah.
But he said to me one day, he says, if you are sober and unhappy, one of those things will change. And it was just like there was so much truth to it. It was so profound to me. It was like, I can be sober and unhappy.
Yeah.
And guess what? One of those things are going to change. I'm either going to get happy or I'm going to get loaded.
It's so true, though. It's so true. And so that's just through my lived experience because for those like 12 years, I put a lot of pride in those chips.
Oh, yeah.
I really did. I just wanted that adoration on my annual birthdays and people cheering,
ego, yeah.
stroke that ego. So after my relapse, because that's what led me to my suicidal ideation.
Because what? I mean, like,
I couldn't start over at 24 hours again.
Yeah. How do I do this?
How do I do this all over again? I can't.
And everyone's going to see me. And I failed. Oh, you preach. I know. I know.
So I won't do it. Put all the chips down. So what did I do with those 12 chips? Took them to a meeting, and I gave them all back.
Yeah.
I don't need them.
Yeah.
I don't count time.
They don't define you.
They don't.
That has refined you. It does not define you. It has refined you.
1,000%. And I tell people, my shaman asked me a very simple question. Brandon, do you love the life you've created today? Toby, I love this life I have today. Are you kidding me? I love this life I have today. He says, good. Give thanks to that relapse you experienced in 2020, Brandon, because without that relapse, you would not have created this life you have today. I am happier now than I was at year 12. And I'm coming up on 2 years after that relapse. So what does that tell you? Time doesn't equal anything.
No. And it had to happen.
And it had to happen. Because honestly, how could I be living my soul's purpose had I not gone through that?
You wouldn't be.
I wouldn't be. I would still be miserable.
Exactly.
I would still be miserable being a news anchor.
Yes.
I'd be miserable making decent money being a news anchor. And I was unhappy. Yeah. I needed to go through that. And Spirit was like, you're going to go through something. It's going to be dark. It's going to feel ugly. You'll survive it. But you need to go through this in order for you to get your life back on track to live its purpose. Why is your soul here?
Yeah.
And it wasn't what I was doing for 22 years. But I don't regret it because it gave me the platform to reach a larger amount of people.
Yep.
And so I don't look back with regret.
Exactly.
You know, it's the journey.
And you look back and you say, why did, oh, I know why now.
I know.
But I didn't know then.
I didn't know then.
Yeah.
I didn't know then. Okay. So if a lot of families listen to this podcast, like moms and dads with kids who are addicts, where can they reach you? Like, as far as like, even for answers, because I don't have all the answers. I try to respond back to everybody. Where can people reach out to you and Soul Surgery if they are looking for treatment options?
Okay. So my company is Soul Recovery. You can reach me at 1-877-360-SOUL.
Okay.
And then Soul Surgery, of course, they have, you can just Google them on the internet and you're there, and they
Full
call
on
them
treatment.
full on treatment.
Residential treatment.
Start with detox,
Yeah.
residential treatment, PHP, IOP. And we just stopped our outpatient program, but that was to allow for more community involvement, so we could pull in the therapists in the community and make them part of our soul team, our soul surgery team. So, well, instead of keeping them all in house for the outpatient, we're now bringing the community in.
I love it. Well, it's always good to have you. It's always good to chat with you. It's always good to chat with you.
You're like my brother from another mother.
I love it. I swear, I love it very much. We're gonna have Dr. Ravi on next on the podcast.
Awesome.
Dr. Ravi he runs that whole detox department, and he really helps stabilize the folks when they're coming in.
He's so amazing.
He's amazing.
He really
I met
is.
him when I first went over there, and super connected with him. And like I said, life always has its way of working itself out, and I'm just so grateful that I have a partner in Soul Surgery and what we're doing, and really just loving on these people every single time we have the opportunity to do that, and also clinically helping them improve their lives.
Yes.
And that's also really, really important. Kimberly, you rock. Thank you.
So do you.
You're
Thank
amazing.
you.
And
Thanks
we'll
for
see you
having me.
back. Yeah, we'll see you back here for the next episode of Escaping Rock Bottom.